Didn't get the title in. That's fine. Welcome in, everyone, to the Football Addicts Anonymous podcast. As always, got my boy Chris Cherry. Mark should be along here soon. Maybe when he gets home from work. We'll see. Hopefully he gets on because he's, like I was telling Chris, he's our college sports expert.
Yeah.
But yeah, might be another long show today. A lot of stuff going on. Training camp getting into full swing. Most teams should be reporting or at training camp by Friday at the very latest. Like I also was telling Chris, I was watching NFL Network today. A lot of July 27th dates.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and 29 of the 32 teams are reporting tomorrow. The only three that haven't or that have already reported is the Cowboys and the Steelers are reported on the 21st because they have the Hall of Fame game, and the Buccaneers are starting, or they started on the 24th because they start their season 3 days before everybody else because they have the Thursday night game.
Yeah. Yep. Should be good. Love this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a football game in 2 football Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a game to recap, so that will be fun. But yeah, we got our fantasy quarterback rankings to go through at the end of the show here. But first, let's start off once again talking about the Big 12 SEC situation. So officially, Texas and Oklahoma today said that they are not going to renew or extend their Big 12 media rights that run through 2025. So that I'm trying to remember. That's Fox, I believe, Big 12, I think. But anyways, yeah. So that sets them up for a transition to the SEC, possibly in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's actually going to be the year or 2025, whatever. I don't know if they're able to get in earlier than that or not. Well, I mean, like I said, Mark probably knows more than me or you, but I don't know. I still think it's a whole. There's so much going into that.
Mm-hmm.
So, give me a sec. I just got the one thing here. But yeah, that's the only NCAA thing that's going on, other than the millions of tweets that I've been seeing about players signing with this agency and that agency for their nil representation and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But let's get into NFL news here. We did have one trade. I didn't make a slide because I didn't get the exact trade compensation until just now. Literally, Field Yates a couple of minutes ago just tweeted what the exact compensation was. So the Texans get a new weapon. It is wide receiver Anthony Miller from the Bears. He comes along with a 22 7th-round pick. Houston gives Chicago their 22 5th-round pick in exchange. So I think the Bears got pretty good compensation for what a bust Anthony Miller has been so far for them, really. I mean, former 2nd-round pick out of Buffalo. Just didn't work out in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, part of that though is because of the poor quarterback play. But obviously he's going to another team that the quarterback situation is kind of up in the air. But if Deshaun Watson does play, I think it's safe to say that that's the best quarterback he's ever played with. So he has a good shot at rejuvenating his career there in Houston. Especially since off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody other than Cooks being ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah, well, they have acquired, it said in the one article I saw on ESPN that Nick Caserio has acquired 9 wide receivers this offseason. They already had Randall Cobb there, got Brandon Cooks, Anthony Miller. I'm trying to think about who else they had. I cannot think of who they have there because Houston signed everyone. So, I mean,
yeah, when you said that they signed 9 receivers, I was not surprised at all because it felt like they signed like 9 of every position this past offseason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Andre Roberts, Kiki Kuti, Isaiah Kutler. I have no idea who that even is. Chris Moore, Nico Collins, who they drafted.
3rd round pick, yep.
Chris Conley, Alex Erickson, Dante Moncrief as well.
Yeah.
They got a lot of receivers, but like I said, I think Anthony Miller has got to be at the very least the number 4 receiver. But I think he's probably ahead of Andre Roberts.
Yeah, which I mean, we already know Roberts' place is already locked in as a punt returner. So, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see if a change of scenery works out. Like you said, it's not really going into a better situation unless Watson plays, which we'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, that was the one trade we had this week. Just some random stuff at the beginning of the NFL news here before we get into like actual player stuff. Fox Sports is changing. Tony Gonzalez, he is leaving the network that he called home for the last 4 years or 3 years. This would be his 4th season since 2017. He is going to focus on acting and go in to try to get on some movies and TV shows. So.
I didn't know he was one for acting, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he can really do whatever he wants. So
yeah, he doesn't really need the money that much, so he could try out whatever he wants to do.
I mean, yeah, we've seen a couple of other players, go into acting before. There's one in particular that I just cannot remember that went from broadcasting to acting because he was older, but I can't remember. There are 3 unsigned first-round picks left. One of them is your quarterback, Chris.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Chargers offensive tackle Rashawn Slater, all unsigned at this point still.
Yeah, the quarterbacks I'm not too surprised about because I feel like the quarterbacks usually take the longest, especially the top draft picks. I mean, obviously the Jaguars jumped on Trevor Lawrence pretty early, but I don't really know what the holdup is though because there's not much to negotiate in rookie contracts because the total money or whatever is already set and all that when they draft them at each position or each each spot or whatever. So I don't really know what there is to negotiate. Maybe like is the guaranteed money negotiable or something, or like how much they get each year. Like I don't know. I don't know what parts are negotiable.
Yeah, the structure, I believe, possibly. I'm not sure, but the I had it in my head. Incentives. The incentives are negotiable. That's really the biggest thing I could think of. That and yeah, like you said, guaranteed money could be an issue as well, because there's the rookie wage scale is just this amount of years for this much money. Figure it out. But like I said, I think the NFL could have rules about how the structure of it works.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least the first half of the contract there's probably rules in place by the NFL that say how that has to be structured. But the second 2 years of the standard 4-year deal for a first rounder is probably all negotiable, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know, but I don't like. I'm not really too worried about it though. So
it also depends on who's representing you, which I believe Zach Wilson is represented by Drew Rosenhaus. I could be wrong, but
and he's one of the most hard negotiating agents out there. So
yeah, and he usually gets what he wants. So
exactly.
But yeah, this was interesting and made a lot of people kind of, well, not mad, but sort of fuming, I guess. The NFL sent out a new memo on COVID protocols. One of the things that I took out of it was street free agents that are trying out. Teams are allowed to ask them for proof of vaccination for entry testing purposes. And if that player refuses to provide that, then he's going to be treated as unvaccinated. So, yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing. It's going to be tough. Literally, if you're one of those bottom players or a street free agent trying to make a team, you should get vaccinated. It's going to help you. Teams are going to want you more unvaccinated. So,
yeah, this whole situation, though, like I said it the other day, but it's getting like I feel like there's going to be a huge divide when it comes down to things. When there's the first major issue that occurs with, like, I mean, there already has been a few minor issues with guys like DeAndre Hopkins who doesn't want to be vaccinated, but the first time where it actually essentially forces a player to retire, I think then it'll become a bigger issue. But yeah, I'm interested to see how things go. But like you said, I think teams are going to definitely prefer to sign the vaccinated players over the non-vaccinated ones.
Yeah. And this is something, that's tough. We were just talking about Drew Rosenhaus, I don't know exactly how many players he has on his roster, but I'm almost sure that he does not represent many, 50 to 53 on the roster guys. I would assume anyways.
Yeah.
So if you're an agent repping some of those lower on the roster players, you should advise them, at least have a conversation about it. So, let's get to the Browns. They released their 75th anniversary jerseys here this weekend. And here they are. 1946 was the first year they played in the All-American Football Conference, the AAFC. I like them. I mean, the numbers, I don't know why, they kind of remind me about from the Bengals. I don't know why. But they got the number on the helmet, 46 patch. I don't know what the difference is between these two. They're both front pictures. So this was the one that I saw on Twitter, though. I think the stripes are different.
Yeah, I think they're a little different.
But yeah.
Yeah, I had the same thought as you, though. When I first saw that, I was like, they look like the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, what we should get is a side-by-side of the Bengals and the Browns 75th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, last random thing here. The Saints have a new naming rights sponsor. So they signed a 20-year deal with Caesars Entertainment to be the new exclusive naming rights partner and renaming the stadium to Caesars Superdome. I didn't even know that the Mercedes-Benz one had ran out. So
no, but I didn't know when it was going to, but I figured that when it did, they weren't going to redo it because the Falcons' new stadium is the Mercedes-Benz as well. So, but Caesars.
That's not fair, though. The Saints had it first.
I know, but like the Caesars Superdome just doesn't sound right. I don't know if I like it. It doesn't. I don't like it yet, but maybe it'll grow on me.
I saw one person say this was the perfect opportunity to call it Caesar's Palace.
I mean, really, they should have renamed it, but you can't rename the Superdome though. Like the Superdome is the Superdome.
Yeah. I saw the pictures though, the 4 pictures that they had on the tweet that came with that. They looked pretty good though. The Caesars logo, the bottom of the Superdome, the logo on the top. All right, let's get into some player stuff here. So, Aaron Rodgers. Oh, there's been a whole lot of news about Aaron Rodgers today. So, first thing today, he said that, or there were reports that he hinted to people that he close to him that he planned to play with the Packers this year. That was the first thing. Then I heard about this solution because President Mark Murphy and GM Brian Gutekunst had a meeting, their annual shareholder meeting at Lambeau Field today. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that came out of that. But there was this solution that was being thrown around that the Packers could lop off the last 2 years of his contract and then let him decide where he wants to go in free agency in 2022. That's almost what happened, actually. Because Rodgers and the Packers are close to a deal. People keep calling them concessions that would allow him to have a say in his future in 2022 and 2023. But they voided the 2023 year, so it's really only about 2022. This is most likely Aaron Rodgers' last season in Green Bay. With that deal coming. But it's also interesting because Devontae Adams said now that he's reopening discussions on his long-term contract because the Packers also have more cap room now. With Aaron Rodgers, cutting that last year of his deal off, that helps them in the long-term cap. So they have more money in the future to give Devontae Adams.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting, though, because, I thought that, obviously we don't know what's going to play out. Like, for all we know, Rodgers could decide he wants to finish out his career in Green Bay and play those 2 years that he was already under contract for or whatever. But I don't know if you saw, I think it was earlier this week that Rodgers and Adams both put up on like their Instagram stories a picture of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
Like they put up the same picture. So I just assumed that meant that no matter what, the two of them wanted to play together. So if Rodgers decides to go somewhere and Adams signs that contract, that's not going to happen, obviously. But I think that's their first priority, though, is trying to figure out a way to play together no matter where it is.
Yeah, people kept throwing around The Last Dance today. I still have not watched it. Probably won't. But, yeah. I do think it's the last season for Aaron Rodgers in a Packers uniform. We'll have to look at the landscape about next year, but I'm not. What people were saying also was that if I know Daniel Jeremiah had it on here, or I believe it was him. Maybe not. But someone said about if they did sign off about trading him. If I can find the tweet. Yeah. If the Packers sign off on trading Aaron Rodgers, then the biggest thing that he would get would be the freedom to decide on where he wants to play in 2022, which, from my understanding, he already has that. But I'm not sure of the exact details. So, anyway, the other quarterback that has been rumored about being traded this offseason, Deshaun Watson, he reported to training camp yesterday for testing. And the only reason he did that was because he Marshawn Lynched it. He said, "I'm just showing up so I don't get fined." Yeah, it makes sense. Like a lot of people have been saying, it's almost impossible to hold out anymore in the NFL because it's $50,000 per day in fines. Now, teams can alleviate that and just wipe them away if they want to. But I guess Deshaun didn't want to take the chance, considering he's also spending all this money on his legal team. So,
yeah.
Which I did see that 10 women put in police reports against him, including 2 that aren't a part of the already ongoing cases. So I didn't read the article on that, but the other thing about Deshaun Watson that was brought up this weekend, the Texans are open to trading him. Apparently they have been for a couple months now. But the price tag is so high. Apparently it is a combination of 5 high draft picks, presumably 3 firsts and 2 seconds, and at least one starting caliber player. So they're making it very difficult for trade for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I don't get the Texans at all, because like they are one of the most dysfunctional franchises in all of football. If they were going to trade Deshaun Watson, they should have done it at the beginning of the offseason. And then they might have gotten something close to what they're looking for. But now, especially, they're not going to get anything like what that report says. The 5 draft picks plus a starting player. I mean, that's not even like they already have so many players on the roster because of all their signings. So it'll be tough to find a starting caliber player because they have so many players as it is. And I mean, the market for a quarterback has kind of dried up, except for maybe, I don't know, maybe Denver is still looking, even though they already traded for Teddy Bridgewater. But I would say that Deshaun Watson would be an upgrade for Denver still. So, but every other place, I think, has already found their quarterback or needs a different type of quarterback, not a starting quarterback like Deshaun Watson. So, yeah, I don't see him getting traded this year.
Yeah. Well, you think about it. This was another thing I saw on the Twitter sphere. There are only 2 teams that could actually afford this in draft capital based off future picks. That is the Miami Dolphins and the Philadelphia Eagles. So, and the good thing, if those teams would decide to talk about it, both teams have young quarterbacks that they could trade away and put in the trade. Maybe even to alleviate having to send 3 firsts, they could send 2 and then 3 2s instead of 3 firsts, because they're getting a young quarterback. I would say that situation would especially work with Miami. I think Tua would be able to drop one of those 3 first-round picks down a peg or 2. Not sure if Jalen Hurts would be able to do the same, but yeah, just those are the 2 teams that have the most high draft picks in the next 2 drafts. So,
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the trade to Miami happen because that would, I mean, obviously we don't know what the final verdict will be with the whole Deshaun Watson legal situation, but if it doesn't end well, I think that's a big reason why these trades aren't going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen with him.
yep.
And like, they don't want to risk wasting all those draft picks and a starting player for potentially nothing, because if he goes to jail or whatever else, then obviously he can't play. And then,
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he even plays. I highly doubt he. We'll see if he makes it to the regular season first, or if he even does anything in training camp. Because he could be. I don't remember who it was last year on Hard Knocks. There was a play. It might have been Melvin Ingram, I believe, when he was with the Chargers. I think that's who it was. That on Hard Knocks, he came to camp. He wanted a new deal. And he came to camp, but he just didn't work out. He didn't put his helmet on, he just observed. So I'm interested to see if Deshaun Watson does the same thing at Texans camp or not, if he actually throws the ball around. One other guy that is looking to get away from his current team. We just found out about it this weekend. Cardinals pass rusher Chandler Jones. Apparently, he requested a trade this offseason. Not happy about his contract. I'm sure he would have a lot of value as well, being at the premier position of pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of teams could use pass rushers, unlike the quarterback position. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that he can. I think that if he does end up getting traded, it will be for a big package, but not anything like what the Texans are asking for Watson. But I could see a first-round pick at least as part of the deal. But who knows?
Yeah, maybe a return to New England.
I don't know if I like that.
I don't know. I think his chances. All right, Bengals. Their quarterback Joe Burrow coming off the ACL injury from last season. He will not be on the PUP or NFI list to start training camp, which is good to see. He's going to be full participation, full go. They said that they probably won't put him on the field until week 1, which is good. I agree with that strategy by Mike Brown and the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the PUP list, though, 4 players added today that I have heard about anyways. The Titans linebacker Bud Dupree coming off ACL injury. Bucs wide receiver Justin Watson. He is going to be out about 4 months after he had knee surgery. Bears running back Tariq Cohen coming off a torn ACL as well. And then the Saints officially placed wide receiver Michael Thomas on the PUP list today. The COVID list, just 1 player added today that I know about. Browns rookie linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He tested positive. He is on that list. Also on the list, Colts head coach Frank Reich will not be in Indy for the start of training camp as he goes through the COVID protocols. He tested positive, and he was vaccinated. Still tested positive. So I still don't understand that, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't really either. But
granted, that's why I'm not a.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the fact that they're on the COVID list is going to really impact them that much at this point because it's only training camp. Especially for Frank Reich, he's the coach, so he doesn't really have to get into football shape or whatever for the season to start. Like he doesn't have to go over the plays like the players do. So, him missing a week or 2 won't really be that big of a deal, I don't think. Especially since also Carson Wentz and him already have a connection going back to their days in Philly together, so they don't really have to build up any sort of chemistry there.
Yeah, so the total amount of players, just got this tweet here, 55 on the PUP list, 25 non-football injury, 1 non-football illness.
Huh.
All right, let's talk extensions here. Big money thrown around. Washington football team today, they signed defensive end Jonathan Allen to a 4-year, $72 million extension, $30 million signing bonus. don't know how they're gonna just pay all of their defensive linemen
No.
because they have Payne coming up. They have Chase Young in probably 2 years.
Yeah, and Montez Sweat as well, right?
I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure if he'll get paid though by them.
Yeah, but I mean, out of all four of those guys, though, I feel like Jonathan Allen was in my opinion, he's the worst of the four. Not saying he's a bad player, but I think he was the worst of the four. So I'm kind of surprised to see him get the extension, even though, I mean, technically it's because his was first up, but still.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, we'll have to see. I think they're probably going to end up, since they already signed him, I think they'll sign Chase Young and they won't sign the other two.
Mm-hmm.
My internet connection
is
unstable, apparently, which is always great. Love to see that. All right. The Bengals, they also signed a DN to an extension. Sam Hubbard, 4 years, $40 million. Not close to what Allen got, but still a good extension for him. They have their two pass rushers for the next 4 seasons in him and Trey Hendrickson. So,
yeah, I mean, that was a good, solid, team-friendly deal there. I mean, I don't know what the exact payouts are or whatever, but that's $10 million a year, which is pretty good, I'd say.
yeah. Solid deal for Hubbard and Cincinnati. The Cowboys. This was interesting. I'm not sure why they did this because I highly doubt he even makes the team. But they signed corner Kyron Brown to a 2-year deal. I don't know if they just did that for cap purposes or what, but I had never heard of him. I just saw it on Twitter, and he played with the Jets, Chris, in 2019. Didn't play last season. Undrafted free agent in 2019. Played in 3 games with 1 start for the Jets. But
I don't really remember him being on the Jets, but then again, it was a miserable 2 seasons for me and the Jets.
Yeah, I finally got you unfrozen now. It was a solid minute and a half that you were frozen on my side. So, all right. The Eagles, they signed corner Steven Nelson to a 1-year, $4.125 million deal. $2.5 million is the base of that deal. Really excited for that. The Eagles and Steelers both have gotten great deals. The Eagles with Steven Nelson here. Also, they got Anthony Harris and what's his face? Eric Wilson both from the Vikings. And then the Steelers, they got Trey Turner. They got Melvin Ingram. I've loved the deals that Eagles and Steelers have been getting this summer. Like all the players that they. The Bears, they signed Lions tight end Jesse James to a 1-year deal, just adding to the depth behind new starter Cole Kmet this season.
Mm-hmm. Is Jimmy?
They
Graham
also
still...
have Jimmy Graham.
Okay, I was gonna say. But that tight end room is looking pretty good, though, I think.
Whoever throws the quarterback, we don't know. There's the football. Whoever throws the football. I don't know why I said throws the quarterback. They got to throw one quarterback anyway. They got to throw one quarterback anyway.
Hey, well, apparently
the Vikings they signed.
Jets, so. Well,
yeah, maybe. Nick Foles.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings, they signed wide receiver D.D. Westbrook. We talked about him working out for them on Friday. So he's officially with the Vikings there. In order to do that, they waived rookie defensive lineman Jalen Twyman with a non-NFI, non-football injury designation after he was shot 4 times a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C.
How unlucky can one guy be? I mean, I know that the Vikings will probably end up putting him back on the reserve list or whatever, but still, I mean, if he didn't get shot, I don't know if he would have been the one that got waived because of this.
Yeah, he'll go through waivers, and then if he doesn't get claimed, he'll revert back to the Vikings NFI list. So, the Titans, they signed former Patriots linebacker John Simon, just trying to find anyone to help their pass rush out with the Titans. So, and then the Saints, they signed wide receiver Chris Hogan today. He was a part of a group of wideouts that worked out. So he will be, I don't know when their season ends with Premier Lacrosse League, but he is currently still playing in that. And we'll see. We'll see if their seasons overlap or not. I'd like to see him play in both.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be the next two-sport athlete there. But, yeah, the Saints finally – I mean, Chris Hogan's not the best receiver, but I think he definitely is an upgrade over majority of their depth at wide receiver. So, and especially with the first 4 weeks or whatever it is that Michael Thomas won't be there. So I guess it'll be Hogan and Traquan Smith to start the season.
Yeah. They have, like Kay Adams was saying on Good Morning Football today, they have Traquan Smith, who's a former second-round pick. They have Adam Troutman at tight end, who's a third-round pick. And then a bunch of undrafted guys. So, yeah. I can't remember the other name that she threw out that is still out there right now, but I know one was Alshon Jeffrey was thrown out there. He's still available. There's a couple other guys that are still out there, I believe, that are maybe I should look. I don't know if that'll take too long or not. But yeah, it's just constant just shit talking on the Saints. I love to do it. I'm happy to do it. Especially because the Panthers are going to finish second place in the NFC South this year.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll have to see.
Let's go wide receiver. Just trying to look on Spot Track here. So, yeah, Tim Patrick still out there. Larry Fitzgerald remains unsigned, apparently. I didn't actually know that. I just thought he was going to go back to the Cardinals already.
Yeah, well, it appears that Arizona moved on from him, so which is
Golden Tate was the other one. Kay Adams.
Golden Tate's pretty good, but I don't know.
Yeah, I could actually see the Larry Fitzgerald signing with New Orleans. I mean, it doesn't really make sense at this point. It would have made more sense if Drew Brees would be there still. I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try to – if they might look at Des Bryant again, possibly. Don't know what the situation is with Josh Gordon, but he's available. I think that's really – yeah, that's really the majority of the guys. That are good, anyways. Cedric Wilson is. I mean, he re-signed with, or I don't know. It's very confusing on Spot Track. Amendola, I don't know if he's signed or not.
I don't think so.
Last thing here on NFL news: the Ravens, they worked out some D linemen this week, including defensive ends Deion Jordan and Shalik Calhoun. So, all right, that is the end of NFL news. Got through that stuff relatively quickly. I like it. Let's get into our fantasy quarterback rankings here. So, I will go first. My number 20. We did top 20. I was going to do top 24 to cover backups in 12-man leagues. But I figured 20 was enough. You know. Some people don't even draft backup quarterbacks. I don't know how you do that, but
I don't know.
All right, my number 20 here. Good old number 7, Big Ben. Number 20 was tough for me. There were a bunch of guys that I was thinking about putting on there. But I was like, let's keep Big Ben on the list. He still deserves it. He was QB 14 last year, projected on ESPN to go QB 17 this year. So I know they are going to try to pound the rock with Najee Harris a lot more than they did last year. So I highly doubt, even though ESPN's projecting 625 throws, I mean, that would make sense considering he only played 15 instead of 16 games last year, but they also have 17 games this year. So I guess 25 kind of makes sense. Because I was going to say I don't think he's going to throw more this year. I think last year was pretty high on his attempts. So I don't know, though. We'll see if they can or can't get their rushing game going. He might throw a lot more. So. All right. You're number 20. Your boy, Sandor.
Yeah, so I did my list from 1 down to 20. So I started at the top and worked my way down. And when I got to 20, there was not a big selection of quarterbacks to choose from, because I had automatically eliminated all the rookies because I didn't want to put them in a top 20 yet. And so that there was only a handful of players to pick from. And yes, Darnold has not had the greatest start to his NFL career. And I know I've been trashing him all year and whatnot. However, I think he's in a great situation for him. And he's got quite possibly the best running back in all of football, as long as he can stay healthy and stay on the field. And then he's also reconnecting with Robbie Anderson. And, I mean, he's got a great supporting cast around him, probably the best that he's had in his career so far. So if he can get over his own shortcomings, I guess you could say. If he can get over those and actually be a decent starting quarterback, I think he can rise up the ranks. But yeah, like I said, I had a very limited selection of people here at number 20, so that's why I ended up going with him.
Interesting. I had him as a sleeper. We'll get to those at the end. But just FYI, sleepers that I had or you had that were on either of our lists did not make the sleeper category at the end. There's only 2 quarterbacks that made it, which you'll see who they are, who I chose for those at the end. But yeah, your number 19 is Big Ben.
All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time on him because you had just talked about him as your number 20. But so number 19 here is where I kind of started to look at all the quarterbacks together. And I just put Roethlisberger ahead of Darnold because of the experience, 1, and 2, because of his performances in the past and how he's bound to have like a 50-point game throughout the season because he usually has at least one of those. And yeah, I mean, it all depends also if he could stay healthy, 1, and 2. I mean, you said that they're going to run the ball a lot, but I think that'll actually help him because running the ball then will open up the field for Juju and Claypool and Johnson and whoever else they have there. So, yeah, I think that this being probably his last season, I think he's going to try his absolute hardest and do everything he possibly can. So I think he's going to leave it all out on the field when all is said and done.
Yeah. I think Big Ben could work out this year and his presumably last season. All right, my number 19 is Jameis Winston. I was debating on whether to put him on the top 20 or not. But even with the Michael Thomas thing, missing the first quarter of the season, which will make it tough for Jameis. And I know we still don't know officially if he is the starting quarterback for the Saints or not. But I'm just going to give it to him. Pretty much everyone has. So I don't know. I think Jameis has learned in his 2 years in New Orleans so far how to play the quarterback position. He had one whole year. He had one whole year under Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Has this whole offseason in the system going into year 2 in New Orleans. I think it'll be all right. You know, the projections aren't the greatest. QB 29 and only 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But I'm sure Jameis will take 11 interceptions considering he threw 32 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I also put Jameis on here because of usage. The Saints are going to throw the ball. They're not a predominantly run team, even though, like they talked about on Good Morning Football, they could, if they wanted to, run the ball 35 times a game with Alvin Kamara because their offensive line is that good. So that's another thing that I like with Jameis is that, you know, he's not going to have a ton of pressure because of how good that offensive line is. So my number 18. Now, this was another one I was debating on whether to put on the list or not. Deshaun Watson. We already sort of talked about him a little bit earlier. The reason he's 18 is because of that legal stuff. We don't actually know if Deshaun's going to play this year or not, even though we're only a month plus a little bit over a month until the season starts. They don't even have any projections for him on ESPN because that's where all the 2020 stats and the 2021 projections were coming from. I had to go to Fantasy Pro to get actual 2021 projections for him, and they still only put him at QB 27. Now, I don't know how many games they projected him to play, because 3,088 yards and 18 touchdowns and those rushing numbers definitely don't look like full season Deshaun Watson numbers, as you can see from last year. But yeah, that's why I put him all the way. He definitely still deserves to be on the list. I know you had him a lot higher, but
yeah. All right. So just a quick side note before I go over my number 18 here. I just wanted to touch on the Jameis Winston thing because you had just mentioned that if it was on the list, you weren't going to put him in the sleepers. Jameis Winston is one of my sleepers because of I had the debate in my head too about whether or not to put him on the list, but I didn't want to put him on yet because he isn't technically officially the starter yet. But one thing I do just want to mention about Jameis Winston too that you didn't is 2 years ago when he was a starter in Tampa Bay, despite the 30 interceptions, he was still the third best quarterback in the league. So, and he was only 13 points behind Dak Prescott, who was the number 2. So, without some of those interceptions, he probably would have been the second best quarterback there.
Especially in leagues run by me, right? 6 points for a passing touchdown, not 4 like that ESPN crap.
Yeah. So that's just my piece on Jameis Winston. Like, I think that he can be a very good starter in this league if he actually is the starter. But we have to figure out that first. All right. So my number 18 here is Carson Wentz. So obviously he's got the injury history, which is a big reason why I have him all the way down here at 18. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's ever played a full season yet. Maybe his rookie year or whatever. But
rookie year, yep.
But he hasn't played a full season since then. So that's a big reason why I have him down here at 18. Because despite him probably having the best offensive line in the league, if somebody comes through that line, there's a good chance he might get hurt. So if you're going to draft Carson Wentz, I would draft him with a lot of caution and but if he does stay healthy, stays good behind this line, I mean, the projection's right there. 3,500 yards almost and 23 touchdowns is great. And the 13 interceptions is a little high, but I mean, I think that this might be the best offense that he's been on. So I like his chances this year. I mean, the schedule is kind of tough, but I still think he has a good shot at having a good season this year. All right, now my number 17 here, Joe Burrow. I put him down at 17 because we only got we didn't get a full sample of him last year. I mean, he played 10 games, and it was his rookie year, so he was going through the rookie growing pains or whatever. But I think now that he'll have a full season, presumably if he can get past the injury and all that, I think he'll come back to form. He's got a new weapon, which he's familiar with Jamar Chase. And, yeah, I like the upside for him. I like that. I mean, the projections right there I think are really good. 4,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I think that's a great stat line there. And the 287 total points. I mean, they have him projected at QB 12, so I even have him a little lower than them. But, again, I only have him down here because we haven't seen too much of him yet. But I do expect him to be closer to what they have him projected at with number 12 overall. Quarterback 12 there.
I do have him closer to them. Let's see. My number 17 is Trevor Lawrence, the only rookie on the list. Played in only 10 games last year, not a full season with Clemson, but was projected as the QB 14 if that translated into NFL statistics. He had a better season the championship year and his second year, but yeah, I think this is kind of like Jameis. He's gonna get the ball. They don't have they do have running backs that can run the ball. I don't know how solid their offensive line is, but I think Trevor Lawrence is coming into the Jags and they're going to throw the ball around. As you can see, 577 attempts, not like some of the other guys we saw, like Big Ben had 600 plus. 600 plus is a lot. I think when you're in the 560 to 575, I think that's a pretty good spot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's projected to have a very solid rookie season, and I agree with that. Like you can see, I have him one below what ESPN projects him as QB 16. So I think he could run for more yards and probably have more carries too, actually. So that would even bump him up probably a little, maybe a spot or two. My number 16 is Carson Wentz. Now, I like Carson. He's with Frank Reich. Obviously, we already said Frank Reich's not going to start the camp. But had a horrendous 12 games with the Eagles last year, almost throwing the same amount of interceptions as touchdowns. Still, though, he finished as QB 22, probably helped by his 5 touchdowns on the ground, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But he drastically needs to improve his completion percentage, which was an issue. But like you said, he's in a better offense, a lot better offensive line, not as many injuries up there. Doesn't have as much injuries at the skill positions as well. He has a great running back in Jonathan Taylor behind him. But, yeah, I think he'll get back not to his 2017 form, but I think he could get – this could be the step, and then next season is really where he'll take off. Because anytime you're transitioning team, it's a little bit tougher in year one, even if you're like Wentz and going to a system you already know. So QB 26 on ESPN, I have him at 16, so we'll see who's right.
Yeah, we both obviously have Wentz higher than ESPN does, but yeah, I think that he can be a valuable fantasy player. All right. So my number 16 here is the Raiders' Derek Carr. We talked about him on the show, I think, last Monday when we were doing the AFC West. Or was it last Friday? I don't know. Whenever it was. But we had talked about him being a pretty solid starter in fantasy. I mean, last year he was the QB 13 in that offense, and I don't know. I didn't want to put him that high. Like I had said in our division preview show, I think he's a very middle of the road quarterback. He's a solid starter, like you know what you're going to get from him, but he's not going to be that guy that wows you every week. He's not going to be the guy that puts up like 25 points a week or whatever. So he will get you probably a solid 15 or so, I think, per week. So I mean, yeah, I think that he'll be a solid starter, but I mean, obviously in our rankings here, he wouldn't be a starter technically in either format, 10 or 12, but he's one of the first backups there. But again, I think that if you wanted to draft him as a starter, if you can get him late enough, I think he'd be a solid starter for somebody. But yeah, they're projecting him QB 22, which I think is a little low for him. I think he's definitely closer to where I have him. But yeah, I think that despite their difficult schedule and having to play some of those teams, like their own division 6 times, especially the Chiefs and the Chargers, those 4 games, I mean, I think that there's going to be a lot of throwing situations in those games. So that just adds to his value.
Yeah, I was surprised at Derek Carr's projections, and even last year that he didn't throw more.
Yeah.
I feel like the Raiders throw a lot, but apparently they don't. You can see 517 last year. Yeah, I don't have Derek Carr on my list. It's partially because they lost his deep threat, Nelson Aguilar, who he loved. Now, granted, they do have Henry Ruggs, who needs to take the next step in year 2. I'm not a big Ruggs guy, so I don't know. I wasn't a big Aguilar guy until Derek Carr took him under his wing last year, but I don't know. We'll see. You're right, though. The defenses in the AFC West are not the greatest. The Broncos, being the worst team overall, probably has the best defense. But, yeah, I think they'll get in a shootout with Kansas City at least one of their 2 games. I don't think that's going to happen with LA. I don't think that's just not a game that LA wants to play. So,
yeah.
And like I said, the Broncos are the best defense. So, all right, go ahead.
All right, so my number 15 here is Matt Stafford. I think he's always been a solid fantasy quarterback. I mean, because he's had solid receivers throughout his whole career with Detroit, having Megatron for the first half of his career, and then having Kenny Galladay for the last couple of years, and even Marvin Jones or whoever else they had there. But now he's in a new system with the Rams here, who I think he's going to come in and just – I mean, we've already talked about it again when we talked about their thing on Friday. He makes them one of the prime Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. Obviously, they have that great defense, and I think that the fact that he's on the Rams, though, I think their defense is the only knock on him, because I think that their defense is going to keep the games to low-scoring games, so he's not going to have to throw as much. Even though it says the projection is 624 times, I don't know. I think that that's a little high. But then again, you think about it, and they just lost Cam Akers, so they don't really have a running game right now. So, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks surrounding him, but just based on his history when it comes to fantasy, I think he's going to come in there and fit just fine with the Rams offense. And, I mean, we talked about it again on Friday with Tyler Higbee. I think they're going to have a really great connection there. He's already got Cooper Kupp in the slot. And, I mean, we'll see what happens with Deshaun Jackson, if Deshaun Jackson can actually play or whatnot. But, yeah, I just think that overall Stafford's going to be a solid fantasy quarterback. I mean, I have him right on par with what he did last year. He was the QB 15 last year. I have him at number 15. But like I said, the ESPN rankings there have him a little higher than me at number 13 there. But again, like I said, I don't see him throwing 624 times. So we'll see.
Yeah, I won't say anything. I have Matthew Stafford a lot higher. All right, my number 15, Matt Ryan. I didn't really want to put him on the list, but he is a fantasy quarterback. The Falcons throw it around, I don't know, maybe more than anyone else. I'm not sure what the actual numbers are on attempts per team, but yeah, I mean, he is in a throwing offense. Now, the thing is their change of head coach to Arthur Smith. I don't recall who their offensive coordinator is, but because of Arthur Smith, I know his system coming over from Tennessee. That's not a throwing system that he's bringing. That's a play action, run the ball system. So that actually elevates Mike Davis's value, which we'll talk about running backs on Friday. But I still think Matt Ryan will get enough shots. As you can see, they have him 30 less attempts
Mhm.
with one more game. So that's kind of a weird thing. But I don't think it'll be an issue. The Falcons defense sucks. They'll have to throw late in games. You'll get those garbage points for Matt Ryan, and you'll be happy. So
Mhm.
number 14, this is where I have Joey B. I think Joe Burrow is poised for a breakout here in year 2. Even though he didn't play all last season, that's because the offensive line was crap. It
Still is, but
isn't the best, but it's upgraded a little bit. Anyways, him and Jamar Chase, I think that connection is going to be dynamite. Depends who they double, though. I'd like to see if – I highly doubt you can go into week 1 and say, oh, we're going to double a rookie. Even one that's as good as Jamar Chase.
mm-hmm.
There's no way you can do that week 1. So, I don't know. I like the projections for Joe Burrow. I don't like that he's projected to run 58 times. I don't think Joe Burrow should be running the ball. But
well, I think part of that, though, is the fact that the offensive line is so bad that he's going to have to run a couple times when it wasn't a running play or whatever else. He's going to have to run for his life a few times.
Yeah. I thought last season in his 10 games, the touchdown to interception ratio was on point. 25-11 isn't too bad. It's still about a little over 2-1. So that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But 4,200 yards, that's the biggest thing that I see that I like. I think the Bengals could have a good offense. We'll have to wait and see if the offensive line can hold up.
All right, so my number 14 here is Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, he was the number 11 last year, and he's projected to take a really big dip this year, which I don't understand, really, because he's still got the same 2 receivers he had last year and the same running back he had last year. I don't know. But anyway.
Kyle Rudolph.
Well, yeah, as if he was a big factor. But I don't know. Maybe it's because Cook might actually play this season and actually have a full season under him. So maybe they're thinking that they're going to run the ball more. I don't know. But, yeah, I just think that Kirk Cousins is in a great offense for him. And he's got, like I said, he's got the running back behind him that I think is the best player on that offense. So teams are going to focus on him, opening up the field for guys like Jefferson and Thielen for Cousins to throw the ball to. And even who's the starting tight end? Is it Irv Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And who knows if he's going to be a factor, but yeah, I think that Cousins has shown that he can be a solid quarterback when it's not prime time. And yeah, last year he threw for 35 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, which was almost 3-1, but not quite. The only thing that I think he would be able to up his numbers a little bit would be the rushing, but obviously that's really not part of his game. But yeah, I don't know why they're projecting him so low there, but I think that he'll be a solid quarterback, potential starter.
He's so low is, for one, the added game. Their projections did not include much of a bump with that extra game for Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Trevor Lawrence, you had a rookie ahead of the vets. I don't remember where they were ranked, but I know looking at the projections on ESPN, it was surprising where, Justin Fields was even. Justin Fields was ahead of some guys that I was surprised by, considering he's not the starter right now. But yeah, I don't have Kirk Cousins on my list. Again, the offense is run centered, especially when Cook is there. Madison can run the ball too. They just threw it more with. But the thing about last year too was the Vikings were down in a bunch of games that they had to come back from, and they did in a couple of them.
And I think they're going to be like that again this year, though, because they don't really have a great defense, so they lost a lot of pieces.
Yeah, but I think they have a young defense that's going into the second year of the rebuild of that defense, and I think they'll be better on that side of the ball, surprisingly. I just think that they're going to run the ball more and play the clock game instead of trying to throw it.
All right, so my number 13, I really didn't want to put him on the list, but I couldn't leave him off just out of spite. But yeah, Brady is my number 13. Obviously, he's got that notion that he's quote unquote not a fantasy quarterback. But obviously, we saw last year with that offense that he's in now, he was the number 8 quarterback in the league. And they are pretty much the exact same offense that they were last year. I think literally every one of the 11 starters is coming back. I could be wrong, but at least all the important guys are coming back. And ESPN has them projected to get to be even better this year, despite the less touchdowns and and one less interception, and one less rushing touchdown too. So I don't know. I think it's more because of the other players' performances than his own that he's going up one. But yeah, I just think that Brady found himself in the most perfect offense he could, and he's got a great defense behind him too. So he's just gonna do his thing like he always does, throw for 2 or 3 touchdowns a game, be a solid starter, and yeah, I put him down at 13, but as you can see, like I said, he was the 8th last year, and they're still projecting him to be top 10 next year, or this year, being at number 7 there. But yeah, I could see that actually happening, but I just had to put him down here at 13 because of his shaky fantasy performance in the past.
Yeah, I'll talk more on Tom Brady. But yeah, projections on ESPN always lower than actual outcomes because they don't want to be wrong. they want to be right that they got to what the projected was. All right, my 13 is Ryan Tannehill. QB 7 last year, QB 11 projection this year. It was surprising that Ryan Tannehill was top 10 fantasy quarterback last year in a run-centered offense with Derrick Henry. But they had 2 very good wide receivers last year. They have 2 very good wide receivers this year with Julio coming over. I think Ferkser takes the next step. Ryan Tannehill could be a top 10 quarterback. I only have him at 13, but he could conceivably be a top 10 quarterback, especially if they get into some of those shootouts. I don't have their schedule on hand right now, but I believe they play the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they play the Ravens, even though I don't think that's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a defensive game. Their defense sucks. So Ryan Tannehill will probably throw the ball a lot in that game. But anyways, I think Tannehill could have a good season, possibly even top 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll talk about him in a few minutes too. So
exceed my expectations, Ryan. Now, number 12 is Jalen Hurts. I wasn't sure about putting him on I really wasn't. Even all the way up at 12, it was close. But when I saw what ESPN had to say about him, and I thought about it, I was like, well, it makes sense putting him this high into a starting role in a 12-team league. He actually played in 15 games, which I was shocked when I saw that when I was looking up 2020 stats, 2020 fantasy stats on Fantasy Pros. But I was like, wow, he actually played in all 15. I was like, well, it made sense. He got a carry, probably at least one carry every game, and then eventually started after Carson got benched. But wasn't the greatest statistical couple of games that Jameis had, or not James, Jalen had at the end of the season last year. He ran the ball a lot, had to. The offensive line was banged up, didn't have a lot of receivers, quality receivers anyways. In an improved offense, Devontae Smith comes in, Jalen Reagor. Like I said, I think Jalen Reagor take next step here. But yeah, they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to run a lot of what they used to run with Frank Reich, the RPO style offense. Miles Sanders is going to have a good time. Jalen Hurts is going to have time. I'm going to keep doing that. It's too hard to. They're both JA. I can't. But anyways, yeah, projected on ESPN as QB 10, so even higher than I have.
Yeah, that's a surprise to see there. I mean, I didn't even consider him until I had that one spot left when I picked Darnold at number 20. But how many games did he actually start last year?
Well, Carson, I believe, played 12. So he had 4. Yeah, I believe it was 4 at the end.
I mean, so those aren't too bad for 4 games, but yeah, I'm not sold on the Eagles offense, so I didn't even consider him. But now that I know his projections and all that and what you just said, I'll put him as a sleeper at least.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing ESPN is banking on is that he is one of the next running quarterbacks. 681 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's over 100 points right there in just rushing statistics.
Mm. All right, so my number 12, I have a little higher than you had with Mr. Matt Ryan there with the Falcons. So I put him at 12 pretty much for the same reasons you put him on your list. Their defense is terrible, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Even with Mike Davis, even with the new system and all that, I still think that Matt Ryan's going to have to throw the ball a lot. And yes, they lost Julio, but they still have Calvin Ridley, who he seems to like a lot. Plus, they just drafted Kyle Pitts, who I don't want to say is the same as Julio, but he definitely makes the departure of Julio a lot less hurtful, or whatever you want to call it. So I just think that, if anything, I think that the new system will help Matt Ryan even more. I think they'll develop a bit of a play action that they haven't really had in the last few years, and that'll help spread the ball out more and throw the ball more. And I mean, we already went over his projections and all that. I have him spot on with what he was last year. I have him at 12. That's what he was last year. Obviously, ESPN has him taking a little bit of a dip there, going down to 14. But I mean, yeah, I kind of like those stats though, and if that makes him 14, that makes him 14. But I think that they're spot on with the stats.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, Mike Davis can catch the ball out of the back. I know. I don't think they've really used their running backs like that in a little bit, but he caught a bunch of balls in Carolina last year, filling in for McCaffrey. And I think Russell Gage had a sleeper type season last year as the number 3. Wouldn't be surprised if he takes the next step as the number 2. So, one thing before we go further, just a free agent signing here. The Cardinals, they're going to sign free agent corner Darryl Worley, formerly of the Raiders, Panthers, etc.
Mm-hmm. Solid pickup for them. All right, so my number 11 here is Baker Mayfield. Now, they have him projected a lot lower than me, obviously. They have him 9 spots lower than me at number 20. But I just think that the Browns are poised for a big season. I mean, they had their best season in like however many years last year. And I think that they're just going to build on that this year. And I mean, the Browns have an incredible offense. They got 2 solid wide receivers there with Jarvis and OBJ. And then they got the dual threat at running back too with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And they have a solid offensive line. They have all the makings of a good offense. And at the center of it all is Baker Mayfield. And yeah, I know that they're probably a run-first offense, but I think that because of the running backs that they have, that's why Mayfield is going to have such a great season. Because just like with teams that go against the Titans or teams that go against like the Vikings, those teams are going to focus on the running back first, which is going to open up the field, I think, for the other players. And I think that Austin Hooper at tight end, he had a bit of a disappointing season last year, I think. But I think that this year, I think he might have a little bit of a breakout with and kind of have the season that people thought he was going to have last year. So I think that all that's going to help Mayfield, and I think that he's a starting quarterback for fantasy, despite the low projections there for ESPN.
Yeah, I was on the Mayfield on the Baker train last year. Didn't turn out terribly, but he still only finished QB 17, which is not going to win you a fantasy championship. And once again, they're in a run-first offense with the 2-headed monster back there. You said they have 2 solid wideouts, but do they? How many games have OBJ played the last 2 seasons?
But okay, let me rephrase that. When healthy, when everything is aligned, they have 2 solid receivers.
Yeah. I mean, I like Baker as a quarterback, as a person, but I can't do him in fantasy. So. He could be a backup. I could see myself drafting him as a backup, though. All right, my 11 is Tua here. Now, I've been hyping Tua up all off season, man. Only played 10 games in his rookie year last year. Solid numbers. I mean, maybe the touchdowns were pretty low, only 11 in 10 games. But I do like him. I think their offense is going to explode this year. It's going to be more vertical, not as close to the line of scrimmage. They have to figure, and that's the thing. They don't have a running game. I mean, they do, but it's just a mismatch of running backs back there. Myles Gaskin, probably the lead back, I would think. If anyone wants to trade me Myles Gaskin, please do. I will take him. But yeah, I mean, you see his projections, QB 18, so lower than I have him, but almost 4,000 yards. 23 touchdowns, probably a little low, but 11 interceptions is pretty solid for a second-year guy. Think he could maybe run the ball a little bit more. That's not really to his game, though. He's more of a pocket passer. So I think the addition of Will Fuller, though, will really open the offense up. Devontae Parker getting involved, Jalen Waddle as well. And they still have Preston Williams too. So, and then Mike Gesicki, I mean, he's going to take another step. It's a young offense. Their offensive line isn't the best, but it's decent. It's solid, I would say. So, I love Tua. That's why I went out and traded it for him in one of my dynasty leagues this offseason. Hopefully he will do it for me this year.
Yeah, I didn't put him on my list. I've never been a big Tua guy. Even coming into the draft last year, I was not a big fan of his. So, despite all the Dolphins' offensive additions, I don't know. I still think he's not going to do that great.
Well, I wasn't a Tua guy either, but you see what they did with the additions, and they did exactly what the Bengals did, getting his former teammate at Alabama and Jalen Waddle. So,
yeah.
All right, my number 10 is the GOAT, Tom Brady. Like Chris, I have him lower than ESPN projects, but that's fine. He outshined the projections last year. Thing is, the man's turning 44 this week. This week, he is turning 44. So that's probably why I have him at 10. Originally, I had him lower, but then I was like, I can't leave Tom Brady out of the top 10. Like, that just can't happen. Especially with the offense. I mean, like you said, they're returning all 22 starters, offense and defense. So that, it should not be that much of a drop, especially with an extra game. What would be crazy is that if Tom Brady threw for 5,000 yards at age 44 and 40 touchdowns, that would be crazy. I'd like Tom to get the rushing numbers up a little bit.
Yeah, no yards.
Well, he did have yards, but the threshold for me to put rushing statistics for quarterbacks was 100 yards. So, so literally, like him and Big Ben were the only two that were not rushing yards, anyways. I don't know. I don't even think Big Ben had touchdowns last year.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised though if he didn't have any rushing yards because he always does that QB sneak on the goal line to get the touchdown. So
he did have a little bit. I don't remember what the exact stats were, but he did have a little bit. But yeah, he is the QB sneak master. This is true. But yeah, I like Brady. The thing is I'm not drafting him though. That's the thing. Like, it's just I can't. I might if I need to. If he provides value, then I probably will. If I don't already have a starter.
Yeah. I mean, I've already talked about it, but I have him in my dynasty, but I have somebody even better as my starter, so he's kind of just sitting on my bench doing nothing. But nobody wants him, so he's stuck on my bench.
Well, unfortunately, I already have quarterbacks that are good, so I don't. Or else I would take him off your hands, but I already have a foursome that is fantastic. That I should probably trade someone, but quarterback's hard to trade in dynasty. Everyone has like 3. So
All right, so here's another guy that you had on your list that I have slightly higher than you. Mine is a little closer to their projections there with the QB 11. I have him in the top 10. But a big reason why I have him in the top 10 is because of the addition of Julio Jones. I mean, I think he's going to have I think Tannehill is going to have pretty much the same type of season he did last year. But now he has a better set of receivers. Not saying that Corey Davis was bad, but Julio Jones is Julio Jones. So
You
I
should
mean,
have. Corey Davis is bad. He's on your team.
I know. I'm not going to say he's bad because I don't think he is, but I'm just saying Julio Jones is an obvious upgrade over pretty much any other receiver in the league except for like 3. So just having a guy like that, I think will open up the field even more. Because now, I think it'll open up the field even more for AJ Brown because now teams are going to have to worry about Julio Jones and Derrick Henry. So I think there's going to be a lot of love between AJ Brown and Ryan Tannehill. Plus, like you said, with Ferkser now getting the starting tight end job
with the departure of Jonnu Smith. We all know how much Tannehill liked to use Jonnu Smith. So if Ferkser can live up to expectation of taking over that starting tight end role, I think that'll help Tannehill even more. So I just think that Tannehill's poised to have a great season. And, I don't see why he can't be a top 10 quarterback.
Like I said, I don't disagree.
All right, my number 9 is the sophomore guy there in LA with the Chargers, Justin Herbert. We all know since we started this show when we did the draft last year, I was all on the Herbert train. I loved Herbert, and he didn't disappoint. In his 15 games last year, he had a great rookie season. He was the
QB9, which is exactly where I have him and exactly where they're projecting him again this year.
So I kind of hit the nail on the head with this ranking, but I mean, they have him having
not nearly as good of a season, though.
Only throwing
28 touchdowns as opposed to his 41 last year.
But I think he can get over 30 touchdowns. The interceptions, I can deal with the 12 interceptions. That's fine. But I just think that I don't know. I think that the 28 touchdowns is a little low for the projection. I definitely think he's going to get it in the 30s. Plus, like we said a couple weeks ago, the return of Austin Eckler for a full season, I think, will help him out. He's still got Keenan Allen on the outside.
And, I mean, the addition of Jared Cook at tight end, I think that'll help him too. Because, I mean, they did lose Hunter Henry, who I think was a big target for Herbert. But if Jared Cook can hold on to the ball, unlike he did in the playoffs last year, I think he'll be a solid piece for this offense and help Herbert repeat and build on what he did last year.
Yep, I have him a little bit higher. Crazy though. QB9 last year, QB9 this year. You have him at QB9.
Mm-hmm.
My QB9 is Matthew Stafford. Just like Tua, I am overzealous about Matthew Stafford this year. I think he's going to have a fantastic season and do exactly what they brought him to the Rams to do, and that is go chase a ring. They have the offense to do it. It sucks that Cam Akers is hurt. They'll get a veteran despite not signing one yet. They'll find someone to sign. I hope not Todd Gurley.
Well, wait. The other thing, too, that I don't think we made the connection when we were talking about it the other day, but didn't Adrian Peterson play on the Lions with Stafford?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we really made that connection the other day. Or if you did, I didn't hear you say it. But after the show, I was like,
oh my God, wait, that totally makes sense. So,
yeah. I do believe, though, out of those couple backs that we said about on Friday, you know, there's a bunch of ones that are available right now. But I do believe, even with how old Adrian Peterson is, just based off what he did with Washington, I mean, he can still run.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. He doesn't have the long speed anymore, but as long as he's getting you 4 yards per carry, that's fine.
Turn it into Frank Gore now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they have Tyler Higbee, who is going to be spectacular in an expanded tight end role. Cooper Kupp should have a good season. Robert Woods will have a good season. They don't have Josh Reynolds anymore, but they're expecting Van Jefferson to step up, as well as they acquired Deshaun Jackson in free agency, so that'll give Stafford a deep ball guy. If D-Jax will stay on the field for more than 2 games like he did with the Eagles last year. Yeah. I love Matt Stafford this year. Wish I could have put him up higher, but they're just the top was tough. The top was very difficult. And talk about those Ravens workouts. Just a sidetrack here. The only guy that they worked out, the one guy that I didn't mention, got signed by them. Chris Smith. Coming over from the Raiders. It's funny though, because we talked about how, that we assumed that Drew Rosenhaus really didn't represent those bottom of the roster guys.
Well, he's one of them.
Drew Rosenhaus represents Chris Smith. So Ravens trying, just like the Titans, anything to shore up their pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 8 is Dak Prescott. Now, the reason he's number 8 and not in the top 5, like ESPN has him projected at, is the injury. Only played 5 games before he broke his ankle last year. I'm just not so sure. ACL, surprisingly, I'm surprising myself, actually, just thinking about it right now. I would put him higher probably if he was coming off a torn ACL than I would with him coming off a broken ankle. I don't know why that is. I just thought about it, and I was like, well, yeah. Just because it's lower and the ankle is a lot more movement, I feel like, than the knee. So, especially with Dak, because he does like to run, and he likes to rush the ball. So, But, yeah, I saw one thing today. He led the league in passing in 2019, was on track to lead it again last season.
Mm-hmm.
Someone was like, should you throw a bet on Dak to lead the league in passing? He's like plus 700 right now, so that's $10 to win 70. It's like, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, you can see his statistics. 4,811 yards. That's probably the highest one. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, that's a lot of yards in a probably pass-centric offense now.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke has declined. The offensive line is not what it was 3 years ago. And I'm not so sure Dak is in a good position to still be protected. So, and the defense isn't the greatest, just like the Falcons. So they might have to throw the ball a lot. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, skeptical because the ankle. That's why he's this low.
All right. So my number 8, I know you had him way down, but
10 spots.
I put him here with the, just pretending that he is going to play no matter where it is. I just think that he's always shown to be one of the best fantasy quarterbacks over his career. I think he's finished in the top 10 probably every year. Last year he was number 5. And if he does play, I mean, those stats, like you said, they don't look like they're a full season's worth of projection there. But, I mean, even if he does miss some time, I think he'd be worth picking up when he does come back. He is, like I said, he's one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy when he is on the field. And I mean, he did it last year. He had those stats last year with a relatively no-name team around him. So Yeah, I just think that he's one of the most skilled quarterbacks in the league, and he can do it both in the air and on the ground. He had almost 100 carries there. He had 90 carries last year for 444 yards. Surprisingly, he only scored 3 touchdowns, but I just, again, this is a big if he doesn't have any sort of penalty. But if he does and he misses time, obviously I wouldn't draft him, but I would keep my eye on the whole situation. And if he does come back to play at any point, I would definitely look to pick him up.
Yeah, especially when they keep half the offense is receivers that they're going to keep final 53 man. Nope, we're not keeping any offensive lineman backups. No running back backups. We're keeping 1 running back, 1 fullback, 1 quarterback, and then the rest, 5 offensive linemen. The rest are wide receivers.
I wouldn't put it past the Texans to do that, though.
So, you're number 7.
All right, so my number 7, I really wanted to put him higher because he is my starting quarterback in our Dynasty League. But because of his tendency to fall off in the second half of the season, I couldn't put him any higher than 7. But obviously, through the first half of the season, he puts up MVP-type numbers, gets you 5 wins in the first 7 weeks of the season, whatever, and then just kind of disappears. But he puts up such big numbers through the first part of the season that his average numbers through the second half of the season still make him like last year he was a QB6. And this year it's projecting him at QB8. I have him right there in the middle at QB7. But yeah, I think those stats are pretty spot on for him. I don't know. The carries, I don't know. I would say maybe a few more than that. I mean, he had 83 last year, but that offensive line is still not great. So I think that he's going to add a few more carries on just because of that. But with another year under DK's belt and Tyler Lockett being Tyler Lockett, going to have a 300-yard game at some point in the season and 3 touchdowns like he did last year. And also with Chris Carson probably being back, I think that helps out a lot too. So, yeah, I just think that Wilson, like I said, he's going to have huge games in the first half of the season and kind of tail off and be an average quarterback. But if you have a roster that kind of supplements that, I think that you'll be just fine with a guy like Russell Wilson.
My number 7 is Justin Herbert. Was fantastic as a rookie last year. Only missed that first game because Tyrod was the starter. But still finished as QB9, projected at the same spot this year with increased statistics as far as yardage goes anyways. I don't know. They're very similar based off last year and this year with 2 extra games. I don't like the 28 touchdowns. I think he'll go 30 plus. So they really didn't do much on offense this offseason. They got more protection. Corey Linsley came over. They also got the weak point, Matt Filer at right guard from the Steelers in the place of Trey Turner. But Keenan Allen is still a beast. Mike Williams disappoints every week. That's fine. But they have a lot of young guys that they like. Jalen Guyton, Josh Palmer, and then like you said about Jared Cook coming over. I think that's actually an upgrade over Hunter Henry. I really do. Hunter Henry's been injured throughout his career, and he's never really produced a market. And Jared Cook has. So.
Mm-hmm. But you're forgetting about one important piece on the offensive line too. Their first-round pick.
Well, he's unsigned. I can't talk about him. But yeah, Balaga and Slater are up there as probably top 5, top 10 tackle duos in the league. Granted, we don't know what Slater is yet. So,
but based on projections, yeah.
Yeah. All right, number 6, A-Rod. He is back in Green Bay, which makes my dynasty roster look even better, considering he's my week 1 starter against the Saints. My week 1 matchups are just terrible, Chris. I don't know if you've looked at yours yet or not.
No.
Yeah, I really don't even know to start. I got A-Rod against the Saints, Dak against the Bucks. I'm not doing that. Josh Allen against the Steelers. And I'm not even going to talk about my 4th quarterback because I can't get rid of him yet. I need to. I don't know how I'm going to get rid of him. He'll probably be a cut. Only cut down. But yeah, I was excited for Dynasty because Aaron Rodgers is back this year. I was disappointed that I couldn't get a futures bet in quick enough on it anywhere, because before the news about him coming back to Green Bay, a bunch of places had him at like plus 2,800, plus 3,000, and I was like, dang, that's a solid. Like, you can throw 10 on that to win $280. I looked at a couple of places, it was literally like a minute or two after that news broke. It's down to plus 1,200, plus 1,400. I mean, it's still 120, 140 bucks you can win. I don't think it's worth it though at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers will be fine. He still has Devontae. They don't need anyone else. He has Aaron Jones that he throws to. They don't use the tight ends. Robert Tonyan. I always forget about him when I talk about the Packers. I always do every time. Yeah. So yeah, Robert Tonyan should be fine. He's the number 2 target essentially. And, their fill-ins, MVS and Equinemius, etc. Well,
and they also got Devin Funchess coming back, don't they?
This is true. Yes. So yeah, he actually dropped the spot, just like Herbert did, because I put someone else up into the top 5. Rodgers was originally 5th.
All right, so my number 6, I have him a little higher than you do, but ESPN has him even higher than me with being a QB4 there. But I just have him at 6 because of because we don't know what we're getting from the injury. Obviously, like you said, the Cowboys have kind of evolved into a pass-first offense. They have all those weapons at wide receiver. And not saying that Zeke is a washed-up running back. I still think he can be a decent running back, especially if they do go full-on committee there with Pollard as well. I think that they can be an effective backfield with the two of them.
Well, let's hope I get him for fantasy.
And yeah, I just think that Dak, other than week 1 against the Buccaneers, I think he can have a solid fantasy season. I mean, you said it when you were talking about him, but he was on pace to lead the league in yards again. The touchdown total was so 9 touchdowns in 5 games, so it's not even 2 a game. But yeah, I think 31 touchdowns and 12 interceptions is a good thing. 4,800. I mean, that's a high number, like you said. I think it's the highest projection. But he's done it before, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again. And I think the biggest number there, though, is the 6 touchdowns on the ground. That's going to be kind of tough to do. But if he does, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, This is all if his ankle holds up. But he got paid already, so we all know that means it's not going to.
Cowboys better hope their protection holds up in week 1.
Yeah, that is true.
It might be. I don't know. The Cowboys might want to wear their blue jerseys down in Tampa instead of their white ones. That white jersey will get dirty real quick, I believe.
Yep.
All right. Number 5. You go first. We both had Lamar though at 5.
Yeah. So Lamar, we all obviously know how he is the next generational running quarterback, whatever. But that seems to be all he is. Yes, he threw 26 touchdowns, but only 2,700 yards, which is very low for a starting quarterback. Obviously, like I said, what carried him was his carries and 1,000 yards on the ground with 7 touchdowns. And that still only got him to QB 10. I just think the league is figuring him out more and more each year and as time goes on. So, like, last year, he was, like, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks off the board. This year, I would stay away from him because, like I said, teams are figuring him out. Plus, he has teams like the Browns and the Steelers in his own division. So that's 4 games where he's facing really tough defenses, especially the Steelers. And I mean, they won the division last year, so they're playing all the first place teams, all that. So yeah, and they're playing the Chiefs again, which we all know Lamar can't play against the Chiefs. So I just think
they didn't win the division last year.
Oh, they didn't? Oh no, yeah,
Steelers did.
yeah, the Steelers still did, even though they had that collapse at the end. But they still play all those tough teams. So I don't know. I don't really like Lamar because of his lack of throwing ability. Like I said, if he can somehow develop that, then I'll push him back to maybe the top 3. But right now, I'm still sticking him there at number 5.
Well, someone trade me J.K. Dobbins in our friggin' Dynasty League, please. That's all I want from the Ravens. Is someone please trade me J.K. Dobbins? But yeah, Lamar is one of the guys I've never been a fan of. Ever since he was drafted out of Louisville. I keep saying it. I know it's bad to say. But he's like RG3. He's faster and more elusive, but it still takes one hit and he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Like RG3. So he has not proven in 3 years in the league that he can be a competent passer. They have him with 3,000 yards as projection. I don't know. He has upgraded receivers, but they thought he had that when Marquise Brown came in. They lost Willie Snead. But they added Rashad Bateman in the draft. Who knows if that works out or not? They still have Marquise Brown. Still have Mark Andrews. They have weapons. It's just he can't get through his progression. That was one of the biggest things coming out of the draft in 2018 that I saw from Lamar is that he does not go or he can't go through a whole progression and find the 3rd, 4th, 5th wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So then he runs, and that's what he does. So instead of a 15-yard passing game, he'll get 8 yards on the ground. Well, yeah, it's 8 yards. That's great. But you could have had double that with the throw if you found the fourth option in the progression. So
yeah,
and the thing is, they have a solid offensive line.
Yeah, but his progression problem is also probably why they're not that great at the end of the games either. Because if he found that 4th option for that 15 yards, that gets them even closer, and possibly like on the sideline or whatever, getting out of bounds, stopping the time. Whereas running the ball, obviously, unless you get out of bounds, but running the ball most likely will result in the clock keep rolling. So, yeah.
I mean, he's gonna get 2 points on the ground specifically. But like you talked about, 2,757 passing last year, that only accounted for 110.4 fantasy points. Whereas if your quarterback throws for 4,000 yards, that's 160 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. We both also had Kyler Murray at number 4. This is the guy that I moved up. I moved him up from 7 to 4 because the projections on ESPN swayed me. They really did. And what I saw from his statistics last year, that also swayed me. Because I was really high on Kyler last year. But it just didn't seem like it was what his statistics show. 8-8 season, missed the playoffs. They had a chance when they were 8-5, and they could have made the playoffs had they won one game.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't do that. So, yeah, I was surprised when I saw Kyler's stats. I really was. I didn't think he did that well, but he did, and especially the 800 yards on the ground, plus 11 touchdowns, was crazy. QB2 last year, QB3 projected this year with increased passing yardage, a little bit dip in the rushing and touchdowns, etc. But yeah, he's still in a pass-first offense with Cliff Kingsbury there in the spread. He has A.J. Green added to the mix. No Dan Arnold, though, so it'll be interesting to see if Max Williams can be that middle of the field guy. But like we said, they don't really use tight ends that much, so that's fine. But yeah, D-Hop still going to do D-Hop stuff. And maybe, I don't know if Christian, what's his face?
Christian Kirk.
See, I forgot his name because he's disappointed me so much since he got drafted. So.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I didn't realize that he was. I knew he had a good season, but I didn't realize he was the number 2 quarterback last year until I looked at the stats this morning. But yeah, I just think that he's going to have a great season. Like you had already said, he has those upgrades at wide receiver and all that. But the one thing I'm kind of worried about is the departure of Kenyon Drake. Because Kenyon Drake was a big part of that Cardinals offense. And yes, Chase Edmonds has been in that offense too, and he's been a part of it. But they had a major downgrade between Kenyon Drake and James Conner now, I think. I think that the committee between the two of them is not as good as it was last year with Drake and Chase Edmonds. And the other thing why Murray was so high on the list last year, 11 touchdowns on the ground is a lot for a quarterback. And even projecting him with 9 for this year, I still think that's a lot. Not saying he can't do it, because obviously he did get 11 last year, but I don't know. I think he'll have a great season. I think the 4,000 yards is good. 25 touchdowns I could see. It's just, like I said, the ground numbers is where I'm kind of hesitant. But again, you and I both put him at number 4, which is even lower than even lower than ESPN has him for this year. So I definitely think he will end up in the top 4. But I think, like I said, it depends on his rushing numbers.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the exact picture, but I just remembering some Cardinals games that I watched last year. A lot of his rushing touchdowns are in the red zone. 10, 15-yard line, probably 10-yard line in, and he just skirts right around the outside and just dashes the end zone because he's that fast. I mean, talk about Lamar, but the thing that I think sets Kyler apart from Lamar, as far as, like I said, Lamar is one hit away. I mean, Kyler kind of is too. Kyler's smaller, a couple inches smaller, for one. I think Kyler's faster than Lamar. Because I remember that Niners game last year where he went and like someone thought that he was going to get him and he wasn't even close because that's how quick Kyler got through the hole. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Kyler has a great season again. It's just, even though this doesn't matter in fantasy, does that translate to wins?
Yeah.
The thing.
I mean, it also all depends on what happens with DeAndre Hopkins too. Like we talked about the other day with his whole tweet about the not being vaccinated thing. Like if that ends up being a problem and DeAndre Hopkins doesn't play for whatever reason, I think that's going to be a big hit on Kyler Murray. But I don't know. I don't really think it's going to end up mattering. But I mean, we saw last year how much DeAndre Hopkins helped that offense. He had the catch of the year against Buffalo to win the game. And kind of to piggyback off of what you just said, I think that's also another thing that separates Kyler from Lamar, is that Kyler can make those kind of throws. And granted, he has a guy like DeAndre Hopkins on the receiving end, which Baltimore has nobody like that. But still,
Rashad Bateman. They're hoping it's Rashad Bateman anyway.
Well, yeah, but yeah, Baltimore has nobody like that really right now. So I mean, but Lamar, I don't even think could have made that throw. So
I agree. Yeah, Kyler's definitely a better passer. I mean, it also mattered coming out from which school. Louisville, not that type of offense. Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, that was.
Mm-hmm.
Chris.
All right, so my number 3 here is Aaron Rodgers. I have him obviously higher than you and ESPN there, but he's just, I mean, he had one of the best seasons of his career last year, throwing for almost 50 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Obviously, those numbers, they're going to be hard to repeat. But it seems like this whole thing with him and the Packers is kind of getting resolved. And Devontae Adams is starting to resolve his issues. So the two of them are still going to be there. Aaron Jones is still going to be there. So the three-headed monster is still going to be there. But, I mean, I mentioned it when you talked about him. They got Devin Funchess coming back. They got a couple of their other receivers that they still have had for the last couple of years. And, yeah, I don't see why Rodgers doesn't have a similar performance to what he had last year. And yeah, I think he can have another MVP type season, especially if this is going to be his last year in Green Bay. He's going to want to go out on top and then also try to impress for whatever prospective teams there are out there for next year.
How crazy would it be if the Broncos get 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in free agency in the last 15 years?
I was thinking about that. I was like, that's going to happen.
And they're going to win a Super Bowl too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not John Elway this time, though.
That would be crazy, though, if Rodgers and Mahomes were in the same division.
Some fun games.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also crazy is that the Steelers shirt I have is Super Bowl 45. Steelers Packers. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for the Steelers that day. But all right, my number 3 is Russ. Let Russ cook. That is a saying that they yell in Seattle. I believe Russ will cook, despite his second half fallouts the last 2 seasons. I think he can sustain it this year. And the offensive line still isn't the greatest, but Russ is still gonna rust. I mean, he does it every single year, even when Pete Carroll says the same thing every year too. He's like, "Well, we're gonna try to reestablish the running game this year." And then by midseason, Russ is throwing 40 times a game. So I think they'll be all right. I think Russell Wilson, I have way higher, not way higher, but 5 spots above ESPN's projections. I don't know. I just have a feeling that Russ can do it in a tough division. There's going to have to be some clutch throws. I think all of those games are going to be close, all 6 of them. He has 2 weapons. Add in Gerald Everett, so an upgrade probably over Greg Olsen from last year. So I think they'll be all right. And Russ can be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. Get him in the 3rd round. All right, we both had the same top 2 and 1. I wish I wouldn't have had to put Josh Allen 2. I wish I would have been able to put him at 1, but it was too tough to put him there. So Josh Allen, what a fantastic season last year. Almost had a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. 100 carries, 8 rushing touchdowns. QB1 last year, QB1 this year projected, actually. It's crazy. Expected to up his throws with the extra game. Not many extra completions. I don't think he'll throw 65% completion. I think he'll be closer to what he did last year, which would make his yardage projection even higher, closer to 5,000 yards. Maybe not, 4,800. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he repeats. They have almost the same offense coming back. They add in Emmanuel Sanders. They still have Cole Beasley. I'm not sure how much he's got left, though, because I know late last year, he had some injury issues and anti-COVID vax thing going for him. So I don't know. I love Josh Allen. I'm going to draft him. Hopefully the ADP is not too high on him, that I can still get him. I know last year I was stealing him on all my drafts. Cherry picking him in the 5th, 6th rounds.
Oh.
Him and Stephon last year.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised to see him as the number 1. I mean, I knew he had a great season, but I've always been a big devil's advocate when it comes to him. I've always pointed out his number of fumbles that he always has because he runs the ball so much and he just can't protect the ball. But clearly it doesn't seem to matter because he was the number 1 last year and projected to be the number 1 again. So if he can clean up those fumbles, that's going to be even better for him. He's going to get even more points, and possibly possibly get over 400 points. He just got short this year and projected 375 for this upcoming season. But yeah, as much as I hate to say it, I do like Josh Allen, even though he is in the Jets division. And he is a big reason why the Jets are not anywhere near the division title right now. But it's kind of hard not to root for a guy like this. He's got the big arm. He's got the receivers. He's got everything around him to succeed, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's taking advantage of the opportunities. But yeah, like you said, I don't know if we're going to be able to steal him in this upcoming draft. He might be gone by round 2 or 3. So might not be able to grab him unless you want to take that high of a draft pick on him. But yeah, I don't think he's lasting to round 5 or 6 like he did last year.
Yeah, unfortunately. Luckily, I have him in Dynasty. That's fine. Like I said, along with Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott. Don't know how that happened, but go ahead, Chris. Both are number 1, Mr. Mahomes.
Yeah, so 4 out of the top 5 were the same for us. But anyway, number 1, if this is a surprise to anybody, then they don't know football. Just flat out. Because Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I mean, he was only the QB4 last year. But again, he only played 15 games. That was, I assume, because he sat out the last game.
No, he missed that one with his toe.
That was this past season. I thought it was 2 years ago. Okay. So anyway,
maybe they did. I don't remember. I don't know.
But yeah, so he, despite playing only 15 games, though, he was still the QB4. His touchdown totals last year, I think, were a little low for his standards. He only had 38, but he kept his interceptions down. He only had 6, which is another reason why he was the QB4. So he didn't have that dip in points there. But I mean, as you can see, like, I'm just looking at the points from last year. Josh Allen was 396. He was the number 1. Patrick Mahomes was number 4. He was 374. So there is only 20-point difference between the number 1 and the number 4 quarterback there. But I just think that, like, Mahomes is in the best offense. He has he has the best or top 2 tight end in the league. He has a receiver I'm not really a big fan of in Tyreek Hill, but he's got Tyreek Hill is one of the best speedsters in the league. He gets downfield, gets those long touchdowns and stuff. So being in an offense like Mahomes and the Chiefs are, then there's no reason you shouldn't pick a guy like him. Plus, they don't really run the ball that often. So that adds to Mahomes. I'm surprised he only threw it 588 times last year. But then again, like, he only played 15 games. He didn't play that extra game.
Well, plus a couple of those games, they did run the ball. The Bills game and the Texans game. Both of those games last year, they heavily ran the ball successfully. Mahomes only had to throw it like 14, 15 times.
Yeah,
so remember that Buffalo game screwed me over in a daily fantasy format.
Yeah, but the Chiefs overall, especially Mahomes, though, I mean, there's a reason why he got that mega deal last year. So he's probably going to be the first quarterback off the board in most drafts. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do it, though. I mean, like I said, I did it last year in my fraternity league, and it got me to the playoffs. I drafted him and Josh Allen, actually. Then I also drafted a third quarterback, Justin Herbert. Eventually traded Josh Allen, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes is as consistent as it comes. It's what's crazy is that with 2 extra games from what he played last year, they're projecting him to throw 42 more times in 2 games, that's fine. It's 21 per game. and get 212 more yards.
Mhm.
Probably would be more than that, I would have.
Yeah.
But overall, that's the thing. Like we're gonna have to train our minds this season as far as season stats go. Like, all right, what's the benchmark that we're looking for at the quarter point of the season? Because now that we have an extra game, to Patrick Mahomes, that's another 300 yards.
Yep.
Like we had to train our minds and see how these season statistics look, because those projections look fantastic for a 16. For a 17-game season, I mean, who knows? But
Yeah, it looks a little underwhelming for a 17-game season. But then again, I mean, are they projecting him to miss a game again? Whether that be because they locked up the division and he doesn't play the last week, or just another random game that he misses, I don't know. But
I don't think they do. I don't think they throw that factor into the projections. I think they extrapolate out 17 games. This is what we think. This is what the model says. I shouldn't say what they think, because they don't think anything. They just put the numbers in and let the computer do it. So, but yeah, and I'm not saying I'm not going to draft Patrick Mahomes, because the situation last year I had to. It was either him or the 5th best running back, or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, that is our top 20. Couple fantasy sleepers now. Chris already said he had Winston in his. I had Darnold in mine. So I came up with 2 others that I think could have good seasons this year, fantasy wise. It is not Chris Herndon and John Smith. It is the only thing I forgot to change on the PowerPoint. I did all these statistics, all of these pictures, and all these slides, and I forgot to change the names on these ones. Anyways, it is Daniel Jones and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, Daniel Jones, I've been laying the wood on the Giants, their whole team, this offseason. But it is set up for Daniel Jones to have a solid season in, year 4 now? Drafted in 2018. Or was it 19?
No, he was drafted the year
Lamar.
before Darnold, I think, right? Yeah, he was already there when Darnold came in.
Yeah, he was in the Lamar Baker draft, right? 2018.
No, that was Darnold. Because Darnold went
he wasn't
3
drafted
overall.
in 2017. I knew that.
Well, then he came in after that. Then he was in 2019. Then.
All right. Well, regardless of whether it's year 3 or 4, he has pressure on him. Just first off, it's hard to play in New York. But second off, he has weapons now. He's got Kenny Golladay. He's got Darius Slayton, who he had a connection with last year. If Evan Ingram can play the whole season, we'll see. Saquon's coming back, supposedly. Supposedly Saquon's coming back. And then who else did they have? Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney as well. They added this offseason.
They also added Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah. So the pieces are there. He just has to throw in the ball. It's that simple, Daniel. It really is.
Don't run the ball.
Their offensive line is, again, one of the teams that's not the greatest, but they're competent. They're not terrible. So we'll see. Pretty high projections. QB 15, up 9 spots from where he finished last year. Granted, he played only 14 games. But, yeah, if he's going to do it, this is the season right here. Year 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think that like you said, Daniel Jones. I think he can have a solid season with the additions that they have and the returning players like Saquon, and it also helps that I don't think that their defense is going to be able to keep them in games, so he's going to be throwing it a lot. And yeah, but I don't know. I couldn't put him in my top 20. Obviously, you didn't either. But I'm interested, or like, it's interesting that you put Fitzpatrick here as a sleeper too. I mean, obviously, it has him projected as a QB 19, which would essentially put him in our top 20 list. But I mean, he's notorious for having those 4 huge games this season and then being a below average quarterback the rest of the season. So, I mean, maybe you can use him as your spot starter when you need a quarterback and hope that that's one of those 4 weeks that he goes off. But I don't know. I definitely wouldn't use him as an everyday quarterback.
My thing about Fitzpatrick is that he's in a totally different situation now. For the first time in a couple of years, he doesn't have a rookie behind him. There is no future quarterback on Washington's roster right now, unless they believe it's Heineke. But I thought last year, and I probably still do think, that in Miami, that they pulled him at the wrong time. He was having a marvelous season in Miami before he got pulled. And then you saw what he did, though, when he came back in every time. He competed, gave them chances to win, won a couple games because of him coming off the bench, specifically the Raiders game, which was a ridiculous throw. There was another one, too, that I can't remember that he came back and won it for him. But, yeah, he's in a good situation, good defense. They're going to be in most of their games. And 4,000-yard projection for Fitzy. Is this the year, Chris? Is it the year that he makes?
I mean, based on our season projections, no. But I mean, he's in probably the worst division in football. So if something happens to Dak or the Cowboys again, I think that division's wide open again. But right now, I think it's the Cowboys' division to lose, and then I think they're the only ones from the NFC East that make it to the playoffs. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, will be tough. Let's see. And lastly, we have the rookies. I didn't put Trevor Lawrence on here because he was on my list. So, But we have Trey Lance. The only other one, Zach Wilson's the only other one's going to start week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields apparently has a chance, actually, I heard. But we'll wait and see on that camp battle. But yeah, Trey Lance, who knows how many games he's going to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure what the benchmark is for him. I think the Niners, it's going to be hard because they're in a tough division, so they might lose more than they expect.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, and then Jimmy G will get pulled up.
Wait, is Davis Mills the backup in Houston, or is he the third string?
He's like the quadruple string.
I forgot they have so many players at every position.
It's Tyrod. They also have what's his face coming over from Cincinnati, Ryan Finley. They signed another guy too. I can't remember who that one was.
Yeah, I forgot about Tyrod. I keep forgetting about Tyrod. So yeah.
The reason I put Davis was because of the uncertainty, and that Tyrod doesn't perform well when there's a rookie quarterback behind him. So I do think, pending the Deshaun Watson situation, Davis Mills could have an outside chance of starting for the Texans.
I mean, there's three other guys that you didn't put on the slide here, but I don't really see any of them actually getting any playing time. But Kyle Trask, obviously in Tampa. If something happens to Brady, I could potentially see him coming in. And with Kellen Mond in Minnesota too. I don't know. I can't think of who else is on that roster. And then Ian Book with the Saints, but I don't see him coming in anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and even Mac Jones, I think those three are the three that you got to watch for this year. Because depending on how Cam does, if he gets hurt or if he performs the way he was last year, I could see Mac Jones making an appearance pretty early on in the season.
Yeah, I don't think Cam's going to last too long this season, especially once they start losing. Now, what would make Cam last longer and hold off Mac Jones is their defense, keeping them in close games and Cam eking out a couple of close wins. But other than that, I don't think Cam will last too long. Like I said, the Niner situation, though, that one is the hardest one to predict because Jimmy G has been good for them. And they have a defense too. I don't necessarily like their receivers too much. I like Debo. Brandon Ayuk flashed a little bit last year. Kittle is fantastic as well, but yeah, I think Trey Lance could probably sit longer than people think, unless they start losing. And Justin Fields, like I said, Davis Mills, who knows? Who knows when they'll get on the field? Davis Mills, obviously, more unlikely, but like I said, there is a scenario that I could see Davis Mills starting for the Houston Texans this year. The other ones I didn't put on, Chris, because I knew they didn't have a chance to start this year.
Yeah.
All righty, that is our show for today. We will have fantasy running back rankings on Football Friday this week. And then next Monday, we'll have to see, or no, never mind. We're still good for next week. I was thinking about the second week in August. That's when I have football practice. But yeah, next Monday we will have our fantasy wide receiver rankings, talking Devontae Adams. Maybe has a new contract by then. Who knows? And Stephon Diggs, as well as all the other guys. We'll do top 30 like we did last year. Wideouts. I believe we have enough shows that we can do every position individually, except kickers, defense will combine like last year. Wideouts and tight ends we're not combining this year because that'll take a million years, just like it did. But anyways, don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is our website. That's where all of our shows are, as well as YouTube, here on YouTube. Not all of our shows on YouTube, though, since we started kind of late on YouTube. But yeah, thanks for watching, y'all. And I mean, I guess I'll say this, even though I put it out on social media, that I have a position with another, I don't know what to call it, website. Sure. They're more than a website, but NFL Draft Bible, I will be a part of helping them start their pro scouting department. So look out for me on Sports Illustrated.
Look forward.
All right, y'all.